Hi guys and welcome, gnembon here. In the previous episode, you may say we have already built the entire farm here on the SciCraft server, and indeed the farm works. We can get guardians to spawn, we can harvest them for XP in the XP side, however, it's not all that well thought through at the moment. It needs still a brewing system, and that's something that I'll have to add. The brewing system also needs some sort of water bottles, which won't fill up themselves, and that's also on the task list, and because we are in the nether, filling up the water bottles here would be a little problematic. It does give substantial amounts of XP, but obviously a potion dropper is a must. We also need to add some sort of a way to get to here from up top, which is actually quite challenging. The point is where we end up after going through the piston bowl to get here is offset a couple blocks in X and Z coordinates and a little bit more on Y. So making some sort of an elevator or a full piston conveyor might not be that practical because it's gonna be bulky and stick out too much. We have here this pitch black spacey atmospheric feel, and I don't want to ruin it with some inadequate piece of player conveyor technology. So we'll likely stick to something simpler, more practical, less intrusive, like a minecart. I know it's surprising, but if you think about it, minecarts on a sloped power rail travel at 12 blocks per second in a scenario where conveyors would likely need to go first straight in one direction, then straight in the other, and then straight up and down. So it's actually not that bad of a solution. And you can hide it quite well. This side on the other hand is pretty much finished. First of all, it's already kinda used up. I killed over 88 million guardians in 3 to 4 weeks. That's about 40 mouse per second non-stop. I mean, normally it was running at 60 guardians per second, but if you add downtime from connection issues, occasional deaths from starvation, simple things, that adds quite quickly. I actually realized that I didn't show you last time how this works at full speed without any issues. I mean, we had some clips from it, but it was when I was experiencing net-lag issues, which was also affecting my AFK account. So at those moments, the station is not that reliable, which is thankfully quite rare. So let me just show you how this works in normal circumstances, with or without net lag. Let's release the madness. Pardon for the FPS drop. Actually, it's not that bad as it could be. What I did is I cut off tails and fins of the guardians as a texture pack, which makes it so they don't get into your face that much. And this actually helps a bunch with the FPS as well. Less things to render, simple square shapes. No problems. The game still processes all of those fins and tails because in Java you can't really change the models, but at least it doesn't render them to the client. I haven't here used the default 16:16 resolution for the Guardian texture as a base, so maybe a low-res textures would help to increase FPS even more, maybe, I don't know. I actually didn't find that the high-res textures I'm using are actually affecting FPS in any way. So now let's talk about the design of the farm, the hard one, the aesthetic one. And let's see if the technical player like me can actually build pretty stuffs. And it will be for you to judge. So as I said, the general vibe was to have some sort of a desert temple shape, but just to disguise the entire farm. So I'm here on the copy of my own world. It's not the SciCraft server. It's because I started this process quite early in October, before even the perimeter was done on the SciCraft server. The main inspiration for this build is the Ziggurat of Ur, which is a build that's over 4,000 years old. So here's a bunch of reference photos for the structure. It was built by Sumerians, and then it was restored by Babylonians 2,500 years ago, so 5 centuries BC. And it stays to this day, which is amazing. And I'll be taking some extra inspiration from the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. It is one of the ancient world wonders that was erected 5 centuries BC, pretty much when the ziggurat was renovated by Babylonians as well, but it perished at the beginning of our era, so we can only hypothesize about how it looked. So if you looked at the original ziggurat, at least how it looks right now, it was kinda plain, but if you look at the gardens, they are covered with luscious greenery. So what we have here right now is just a rough cut of the design. So roughly where the wall's gonna go, just use the structure that the ziggurat had. And there are multiple ways we can make this plain structure interesting. First, you can make it dilapidated, which would be fitting to this build because it's very old. We can do it by exposing some reinforcements, but I'm pretty sure they didn't do that back then. It was just plain stone. We can technically leave the structure as it is and just basically ruin it. The awesome reference for this kind of work would be Scar from the Hermitcraft server, and you probably all know about him. However, my plan is to build this structure lived in, like it would look like back in those days when it was used. On top of that, we have to keep in mind that this is part of the farm, so we have to keep it spawn proof, so leaves, are fine, but all the other blocks we have to keep on slabs and stairs. Also, within 5 blocks out of the structure, at least at the levels where the spawning chambers are, we shouldn't be using any solid blocks, although if we use 1 or 2 in the design, it doesn't matter that much. I wouldn't be that strict about it. So now let's talk about the block palette. Obviously, we'll be using sandstone. It's a natural choice for any sort of pyramid shapes. Sandstone also have slabs and stairs, have other variants like chisel, smooth, and even more is coming in 1.13. However, for texturization, we would need more blocks. So I listed here all the yellow blocks I found in the menu. I may have missed 1 or 2. The key is they don't match sandstone that well. Sandstone looks the closest, but has a weird bluish tint to it. If you just compare it to sandstone. Other blocks like clay, concrete, gold are much more punchy, vibrant. Unfortunately, sandstone doesn't have that much love comparing to stones, where we have plenty of options with all the sorts of grey blocks in the game. We could also use birch, which have all sorts of slabs and stairs and also fences and other weird stuff. And we can use it to build things that will be on top of the pyramid, like for example walkways. It's a desert build, so stone gets typically very hot exposed to the sun, and using wood in places where you, for example, would walk on it would give a pleasant feel. So before we continue, let's do one more thing, which would be the switcheroo with the new developed textures by Jasper Burstra. So it's good to have the build, the look of the design future-proof in terms of the changing textures. The technical concept of the farm is very simple, so it should stay useful for quite a few versions. So we should future-proof the looks of it as well. I must say the new sandstone palette looks awesome. The new texture here works very well if you, for example, mix it with its own slabs and stairs. Marbling on the sandstone texture is much more defined. Slabs and stairs, they add those extra edges to those blocks, and the pattern on the sandstone has roughly the same contrast to the actual sandstone pattern. Also the new birch, it matches the tint of the sandstone very well. I've heard people complaining about the saturation of the new wood, but it looks great with the sandstone and it matches it very well. We could add an accent color, like it's completely different, like for example prismarine, but that would deviate much from the original and I don't want to do it. With other yellow blocks, it's still too much difference, too much saturation difference. If you, for example, look at endstone, it has this little prismarine tint to it. For example, look at the wet sponge, it's a little bit like a dark green mixed with yellow. Also the gold texture is like mixed of orange and yellow, so we have all the colors for the guardians. Oh, and the new texture pack, I love the new leaves. They have very different textures comparing to the previous set of leaves, which were roughly the same, especially oak, which is very unique texture to it. So for now on, just let's stick to the new texture pack for the rest of the build. Since we have established that texturization with sandstone wouldn't work that well, we need to detail it, and I'm planning to go ham with it. So let's, for example, look at the front bits. I did it together with Norwegian artists who have pointed rightfully that with the depth, the bigger the build, you can actually go bigger with the depth. So small builds typically have some details in the front and the background block at the back, but large builds, you can increase the depth. Here we have, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks deep, and that's not actually a lot if you look at it, but it's like good enough. So let's switch to the other side where I started fleshing out the texture and the details of the main walls around the ziggurat. It'll consist of 2 sections, one is kind of protruding, the other one is sunken, and they will be alternating between each other. The depth between them, if we for example start over here, is 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, depending how we look at it. And here is these gutters, we can be putting some water fountains going down from these openings. Now regarding schematic, because we have to design this temple somehow, I kinda got used to it and it's extremely useful, especially in creative build. Schematic has less limitations, less clunky to use than structure blocks. It doesn't have this weird 32,000 block limit. Vanilla should really have a game rule for it like they did with, for example, command block execution limit. In creative though there is a little problem, you cannot just paste the entire structure that you just copied. The only really option, if you want to quickly put it in a new place, you have to paint with the printer, but there is a benefit to it. So I've taken this pattern on the side of the wall that I just shown, and I just want to emboss it here on this front section of this wall. Not entirely, just this section where it covers the front wall. So with printer we can enable it and we can just print with the player itself as a brush. You have to be really careful, not doing too much, not going too much into it. It's a little bit like printing with Photoshop where you have 2 layers and then you paint a mask between them. And then when you're just done, you just need to fill the edge and just place blocks where old and new sections meet and just fix it. So this trick with Schematica can help greatly sketching the entire build together with those irregular shapes that we have here. So let me just zone in. I just need to design all of it, not only how it looks but also how it functions internally, the whole shebang. The interior, the control room, we need storage, not only for jobs but also for empty shulker boxes. It will also be awesome to have some sort of a local crafting station that refills itself. We also have to have some sort of a sorting mechanism, but to catch all the crystals and the shards, which is about 600,000 of them, we need 80 to 90 slices of a sorter. So we'll be using a standard Impulse SV sorter with Ilmango's shulker box packer, I believe so. We have to add all the control redstone, all the switches, extra overflow protection because we don't want this to overflow and crash. We need a brewing system because we need it for the XP section. For the brewing system we need a bottle refiller because it's not that easy because the brewer's probe is going to be in the nether and the refiller requires to be in the overworld. It will be nearby but not too close because we will be sending items through portals and we just don't want to mess up existing portal linking. So I would say just give me a couple weeks and it should be all done. I tend to get really boring when thinking about the design and I really have to focus while building, so I don't want you guys to need to stick around for days, so kick back and enjoy the time-lapse, I guess. Okay guys, so we have built almost entirety of the garden farm right now at this point, and my thoughts on using Schematica with those builds, it's awesome. I've heard some people saying it's cheating, whatever, but Minecraft is a game of creativity, and the fact that you have an overlay of what you want to build so you can plan it better, you can build it once rather than a couple of times because you have to rebuild it because you made a small mistake. It doesn't remove anything from the creativity, and then you don't need to follow the scheme. Like for example here in creative I just put these two power lines to send signals back and forth just next to the farm, and just in real life I just thought, okay, this is not very convenient, you can't really place it and walk on it, so I moved it by one block. Also like with stuff like redstone, like complex redstone, like the loaders, which we'll come back to in a second, sometimes you just see too much stuff, it's better to do it without using any overlay. However, we have last bit to do, which is the on-off switch for the farm. So normally we had it on the side of the farm, like there was a torch tower, but now we don't have any space for it because there's a ring, also show you guys in a moment, of stuff around the farm which we don't have a space for the on-off for the farm. So instead of trying to finagle it around it, I just thought, okay, let's just do this inside of it. It's gonna be fun. Because we have to drill through the farm without destroying any of the portals, any of the redstone stuff, and send a signal, okay? So in this here, so our on-off signal can be anything. So even if we count the button and we won't get a signal, oops, this goes away. I can move them. Yes, I can. Yeah, cool. So more stable. And then go over here, and then we'll create a cell. So you can match it with the stuff. There is already here, so whenever we have a signal, this will trigger for a one tick, which is going to send the stick to the distance top. Should have brought my axe. Do I have my axe? I don't have my axe. Dang it. Let me bring my axe and be back here. So I'm back with the axe. I couldn't find my diamond one. I just made a simple one with iron. We just need to break a few pumpkins, so it's not a biggie. I also brought myself some ice because I just remembered that there are some issues with the water. We will be needing to remove and replace a few water blocks while going up. Now just find our way through these redstone blocks up top, and these weirdly lit redstone blocks are actually highlighted by schematica that they should be observers that we just need to place. So there's water on both sides here, so I have to be careful not to these rails that are placed. I'm going to break some. Yeah, I can observe. Now I can break some as well, so these weird water blocks here are fake. They're only from schematica. Probably the farm was on when I was saving down the farm design. Break some problem. Yeah, and there's redstone blocks. I need to go through that. Yeah, so observers. Now we can break this block. And so our signs are going to be behind. So that. And also I can see that zone. That's the way through. So we're observers go. So one here. And so put one up. One like that. Now I have to put on the sides. So we go to this chamber. And fill out these redstone blocks. Back. Let's go back to the beginning. As long as it's not in the sign. So looking out. And now we have to go up. So this is all messed up. Down here. Now I can break this block because it's actually in the middle of portal, so this is the main portal equals fruit. Yeah, this is the main portal. And we have to go up here, doing like so, we have to break this block, we can do it. Now this water's gonna flow, you can see this, and we're gonna break this block. So we have to be really careful. So next observer goes here, so you have to block the waters again, like so, break this one, and break this one, yes. And then we have to put this observer facing up, like so, yeah, this observer also faces up, like so. So face the sides and to break this block and we can. Break some, not to find this is all tricky. You have to block the water full, like so, and break this pumpkin. This is all tricky stuff. You want to support, like so. And now I can do this like that. I need to place pumpkin here and there, and to break this pumpkin over here. So that's what I'm going to do. Observers, observing this side, observing this side. Now I can just work on, so I have to do that, and that. Now this water is going this way, and this one is going this way. Anything going this way. Now I have to go up again. This is kind of weird, so we have to go up by 2 more blocks, so like that. I remember now to go back, just place this guy like so. And those are going to with some blocks over there. And that's really cool. It's how we're repeating themselves. See what's up. Now we have to go up to the very top. And now should be some setting. Yay, we did it! And we did it without spilling any water. Success! As you can see right now, we just need to connect the redstone dots here with the rest of the redstone mesh, and by sending a pulse through the observers, we will toggle the water in the farm and on both floors. So I hope you have enjoyed this building speed up. It took me about 2-3 weeks to record it, all of it. At this point the farm is fully functional and fleshed out with the most decorations in place. Still, it's not bushy enough to my taste. Next, it will be our last part of this mini-series where I will show you what secrets this pyramid here hides behind these 2 dark corridors. We'll also show in details all of the cogs of the system: sorter, storage, crafting station, brewer, boiler refiller, and probably a bunch of other cool stuff. I think there's a bunch of interesting design decisions I made, so I think it's gonna be pretty interesting. If you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave me a like, leave a comment in the comment section below, subscribe if you are new, and see you next time in the last episode of our Million Guardian farm. So why a Million Guardian farm? I've got this question a couple of times. Because the word million comes up awfully often when talking about this farm. So till then, see you in the next one, bye bye!